Okay, fun fact before we dive in. This outfit is actually inspired by Cher from Clueless. It's one of the most iconic looks in cult film history, and it's instantly recognizable. Like, if you saw someone walking down the street in this, you'd probably clock the reference immediately. One time I went to the Melrose Flea Market, and like 3 people asked me if that's what the inspiration of this fit was. Like, oh, is that from Clueless? And that's the power of visual branding. It's not just about clothes. It's about association. It's about creating a memorable public facing identity that says something before you even speak. Hi, I'm Luna, and this is a project I've been working on through my music industry internship at Biz3. I'm also doing this as a research project in order to get my minor in music industry from UCLA. Woo! So, I've spent the past few months helping with publicity campaigns for emerging and established artists, drafting bios, compiling press clippings, and watching in real time how identity and storytelling get crafted for the public. And that got me thinking, how much of what we see is actually the artist's voice, and how much is filtered through marketing strategy? So, the central question I want to discuss today is, how do publicists shape the way artists' identities are represented in media? And what happens when identity becomes part of a branding strategy? So, why does this question matter? Well, in today's music landscape, identity sells. Labels want to market the first openly queer or a proudly Middle Eastern artist because visibility creates buzz, it creates coverage, and ideally creates fans. But just because something is visible doesn't always mean it's empowering. And when identity is framed as a media hook, it raises real ethical questions. So we can kind of think of publicists as narrative architects. Publicists used to mostly coordinate interviews and write press releases, but in 2025, they're story architects. They're the ones shaping the first impression people get when they Google an artist or read their Spotify bio. Academic work by Formalin and Stark talks about how artist identity is assembled over time through strategic moments. It's not just one Instagram post. It's the accumulation of press quotes, editorial features, and visual branding. And in my own experience at Biz3, I've seen how even the most personal narratives, queerness, mental health, diaspora, gets discussed in marketing terms. How much is too much? Where do we draw the line? Let's take Chappell Roan, for example. She's one of our clients at Biz3, and her rise has been tied not just to her music, but to her bold, unapologetically queer persona. At the 2025 Grammys, she used her platform to speak out in support of trans rights and call on the industry to provide livable wages and healthcare for artists. That speech sparked backlash from music executive Jeff Robin, who called her comments misinformed. Chappell clapped back on Instagram and challenged him to make a $25,000 donation to artists in need, and cheekily said, "My publicist is at Biz3 Publicity. Let's talk." This moment did more than go viral. It highlighted how artists like her are aware of the machinery behind them and how their team plays a role in shaping not just an image, but advocacy. When you're building a brand around identity, you're also building responsibility. Another example is Saint Levant. He's Palestinian, French, Algerian, Serbian, and raps in Arabic, French, and English. Naturally, that becomes part of the story. But as someone who's helped pitch him to media, I've seen how easy it is to flatten that complexity into buzzwords like global or multicultural. Articles tend to focus on his background because it fits into a marketable narrative, but his music is also about resistance, romance, nuance. I kept wondering, are we helping people understand who he is, or just selling a curated version of that story? This ties into ideas from Iancu and Chetan, who describes Publicists as brand architects navigating authenticity. What gets emphasized in press kits doesn't always reflect the full artist. Sometimes it reflects what outlets are more likely to pick up. So then there's this kind of duality when it comes to the ethics within music publicity. There's this tension. Identity can be empowering, but it can also be extracted for clout. When publicists are tasked with telling stories about mental health struggles, immigration trauma, or coming out, it's a heavy responsibility. Academic texts like Selling Out by Klein, Meyer, and Powers talk about how autonomy can be compromised when commercial goals take over. What starts as representation can slide into commodification. That doesn't mean artists aren't involved, but even with consent, there's a difference between honest storytelling and trauma marketing. So, how do we do better? Well, first, transparency. Publicists and artists need to have honest conversations about what stories they're telling and why. Not just what's marketable, but what feels right. Second, flexibility. A narrative that works during one album cycle might feel forced in another. Artists grow and their stories should grow with them. And then third is care. We're not just marketing songs, we're shaping public perception of real people. If we're going to spotlight identity, we owe it to the artists to treat that with the same respect we give to their art. So yeah, branding is powerful. Whether it's Cher from Clueless, as if.
I don't know why Dion's going out with a high school boy. They're like dogs. You have to clean them and feed them, and they're just like these nervous creatures that jump and slobber all over you. Ew! Get off of me! Ugh, as if!
Or Chapel Roan in her white face paint and red lipstick, the way we present ourselves sticks. But behind the image, behind the press campaign, there are real decisions being made about what parts of someone's identity the world gets to see. So let's make those decisions more intentional, more ethical, and more collaborative. Thanks for watching.